Hi guys, and welcome to episode 3 of all kinds of classics on this 1930 Dodge build. I reference it as a 29, a 30, or a 31. I do know it's not a Plymouth. I do believe it is a Chrysler, because I yanked off this is on the dash, and it's very, very hard to see what it is, but it says Chrysler in there. And I dipped it in acid, and I'll try to get it as close as I can. I don't know if it'll focus, but it is what it is. Still just moving forward with it. It's probably a Dodge. I'll get it registered in either Dodge or Chrysler. In any event, in episode 3 here, now we're moving on toward building the cage, building the square tubing inner structure that supports the hinges for the jam, the latch side for the jam, ties the header and the floor together to get the car squared up, because obviously with as much metal separation as was on here, I go through the steps that I believe necessary to get the car square again. And in the last video, a lot more emphasis in this one is using the doors as that reference point. Make the doors, because they're separated from the vehicle, it's relatively easy to make mirror images, a right and a left, in terms of scalability, keeping them consistent in terms of size and where the radiuses are, and quite frankly, on these older cars, there's a lot of right angles, so your success opportunity is substantially better on something like this. So in any event, take a look through here as we're building the space frame, if you will, that replaces all of the wood structure on the interior side of the car to support the doors and the basic shape and scale of those openings, and then straightening out the interior and the height and all that kind of thing. Enjoy the videos, provide any comments you feel appropriate, and we will go from there. Thanks. All right, now we're finally on the results page of this project. You can see, looking over here, these are the pieces that I had made. So now I'm replacing that outer trim piece. We'll go to the other side of the car just for a quick refresher. This 1-inch trim piece, we're going to replace that with the 1x3 square tubing running along the line of the floor, and I just basically took and pie cuts and bent it roughly to the shape of the car. You can see that in here, if I kind of hold this out, there's some exposure down here. So now I'll zip cut after I mount the doors on. I'm sorry, I'm a little excited. I'll spot weld the doors on to the gap that I want to achieve, put the post in to the gap that I want to achieve, put the rear door on, tack it up to the gap that I want to achieve, and then trace the shape of the body line along this 1x3. It's all 11 gauge material. There, and I'll get in there with my zip cutter and carefully cut the line, remove any excess material from the radius here, and tap in. I made sure that most of the points, because even though it's a curve, a lot of these old cars are a continuous straight along it, pretty significant straight along the doors. So then that will just allow me to pie cut it, tap it, shape it, and do a very small amount of grinding. So I shouldn't thin the metal out too much to achieve the result that I'm looking for. When I finish this, I will copy it exactly onto the other side.
And that will allow symmetry between the two sides. This is the doorpost. He measures out to 2 inches by 2 1/8. For that, I'm going to use 2x2 square tubing, and I will just make a paper copy of this shape right here as it narrows down and copy that shape on the 2x2 tubing. Then I will zip cut off this piece, this whole profile on these two ends, and I'll apply that to the post. Then I'll weld that in at the floor to that piece at the floor, and I'll be building a 1x2 structure across the top. Finish up the rear post and then tie him in the space underneath the inner fender brace. So everything should be rigid and ready to go, and square, and a foundation to start building the 1929, 30, 31 Dodge, whatever it is. Okay, it's another day on the 31. Today is the, I think the 7th of May. Here we've got, this is the door jamb. So this is the top hinge and the bottom hinge. And along with this, of course I didn't have my pieces hanging around. Is this piece. So these are the hinges, and this is for the let's see here, yeah, this is for the driver's side. This one is for the passenger side. So they're a little different. I happen to have one of these, the rest of the car, they're rusted out or gone, but in good enough shape to make it. Anyway, that represents the rear door jamb. So the issue is, of course, that I'm building a structure, taking all of the wood out and building a metal frame around, picture frame around the doors and all the window openings. So I'm replacing this shape here. Is you got a straight edge on the interior side, but this is a curved edge on the exterior side to follow the inside of the jamb and then follow the shape of the fender. To build that, I'm using 1x1 tubing. I'm going to follow the pattern or the shape of the jamb on one side, and then on the other side I'll be going straight up with 1-inch tubing that'll follow that taper. Okay? It'll tie into a tubing that'll go straight up and start the picture frame process around the window. The passenger side, I'm welding it up right now. I rolled the tubing. I'm welding it up so that I can put that structure in and mount it and continue the frame around the vehicle. So far, I've got all of the doors done. I've got the bottom made. We'll take a quick look. I showed this tube. I still have to do the trimming. I don't have it, until everything is tacked in, I don't have it properly positioned, but I do the cuts. I'll do a relief cut, come around, do a relief cut, come around. You see it's hitting right here, right in this area, and then I'll slice it, a little bit of a pie, tap it in until it forms to the door. The interior jambs, again, probably better to go to the other side. That's the jamb, the latch jamb for both doors, because the rear is a suicide door. The original, you can see they were both rusted out at the bottom. I'm cutting this section off right at this edge, taking this entire section out because it's a channel with wood tied into wood with wood screws, and that's got to go away. So I'm going with a 2x2 square tubing, and I'm plug welding. You can kind of see the outline of some of the plugs, but every 3 inches there's a plug weld on smaller sections where there's not an opportunity to plug weld because of a door jamb or a door stop, those kinds of things. Then I am not welding that, so this will have 2 plugs, and then I'll weld it all the way up. I took the tube and pie cut it so that I could follow the shape of the door jamb. See how it thins out and then it builds up, and then it's perfectly straight. Dimensionally, it's the same all the way down here. So, one jamb done. Everything I make, because structurally things are just a little bit different. Of course, the whole car has shifted a little bit, you know, from not having a skin in and being molested and handled and not having the body connected, those kinds of things. I'm building 2 of everything so that symmetrically they're exactly the same. So as I finish off this entire side, I will then come over, put this side in, and start my cross bracing. As soon as I build this in, put my cross brace in the back and in the front to hold the platform at the bottom in this area, and then start to construct this jamb, put this jamb in, and so on and so forth. Anyway, it's coming along. It's coming along. Thank you. Metal dust. I did a little grinding today. So now we're building the interior jamb pieces for the rear door. That's what I got accomplished. This guy here, he's got a curve that matches the curve on the door. This is for the driver's side. I made 2 of everything today, one a mirror image of the other. This will indicate where this needs to come in, my bottom rail. But I need to hang the rear door to find that part. So I made that. I showed those earlier. I made the jamb for the other side with the hinge pockets in it. That welds on to the fender brace. This will weld on here. Hinge pockets here, go up, and then the top rail will span across and follow this roof line marked out with the doors. Then we'll have this all picture framed on this side. Again, I'm building 2 of everything. When I relief cut this, I will overlay this over the other one that I'd made, sitting right over there. I will lay it over the top so that I make 2 identical pieces, an exact mirror image of them. And then that will allow me to take, it doesn't matter that the floor is disintegrated, it'll allow me to get the structure correct and the distance, the frame, the measurements identical to both sides. The car will be symmetrical. Here we are back again on the Dodge. Behind is the uncut 1x3 that was just notched, basically notched, to generally follow the body to provide enough material on the back side, or enough material in total. So this lays horizontally on the bottom underneath the doors. Oh, the doors. Would you look at that? So it's that piece right there that I'm replacing. That's just a trim piece, but I'm putting that 1x3 underneath, and then I'll put cross bracing on it when I get to a drive shaft, slit it if I widen the body, still got to slit it, and then I'll do a hoop at that point in time. But at this point, I'm trying to get all of the door framing in and get the body rigid. So once the body's rigid, once I have a good foundation, I can build on it. I've taken the lift. There's not a lot of weight to the car, but I've taken the lift and leveled it, shimmed and leveled all 4 points on the lift, checking it regular. And now, let me kill that. And so I can just check it from time to time. This block here is what's holding up those over there. But now I can square out the frame, make sure my door body lines are all lined up, those kinds of things to make sure that nothing changes as I'm squaring up the frame. Once I get the bottom brace in, then I'll plumb out all of the posts at key points in the body and put it in an X frame, and then this will be ready to start on the body sheet metal and get her whipped into shape. Well, here we are on Saturday, going fishing in a little bit, but we've got the shape of the front end, or the front cowl, and then we follow the doors all the way down. Again, pie cut out, save the top. We've actually cut in about there and about there. You can just barely see where the weld started right there. And then drawn on the shape of the door, but 2 mirror images. There is a little crown. The top one is for the passenger side. The bottom one is for the driver's side, because my door gaps get a little higher here, so it crowns. Now, I don't know if I might pull that crown out. I have no idea at this point what I'm going to do. But I can, of course, throw it in the press and straighten it out. But after I get a few test fits in, we'll make that judgment call later. Happy Sunday. June 12th today. This morning, I just finished it up, this side for the framing, the picture frame. So this I tacked in, it's just tacked. Oops, that's all right, it's all hollow, I can tap that off. And then basically I'm following the rear frame, and it's going to be about 1/4 of an inch on the inside of the door frame. Okay, all tacked in. So now we have a continuous frame. The front post, he's tacked in both sides. Continuous frame all the way around the doors. And there you go. So the project today then, which makes it substantially easier, because I started on the side that had a little less cancer and in the groundnism. So that side was a lot cleaner. So basically at this point then, I've made two of everything. So as I was building, just so that there would be mirror symmetry, I've got this clamped in. I hammer formed that inner brace. The rear picture frames are not done for the rear window and the rear structure. I don't know, you call that the rear, the D-pillar, but I've got that to finish. But of course the floor is all separated still. So once I get my height established for the rear of the vehicle, since it's not in, I've got to find a couple of points, probably the tops of that window, to reference off of the floor, get it propped and proper, and then I'll get the rear supported. At this point, only the rear jamb, or the rear door skin, is tacked into the rear door jamb, because structurally that's holding the hinges and everything else. The latches are in the center because it's a suicide rear door, and the front post existed. So at this point, I'm going to start and build from the bottom up the structure. I've got my reference measurements, I've got everything intact. And even if, for example, I plumbed out that at 91.5 degrees, that is. This one was at 91.5 degrees uninterrupted. That one was separated at the base. It was rusted through at the base. That's a couple videos ago, I think. Hopefully I captured that. But anyway, so now I've got all of my reference to be able to continue, and my angles. I've leveled the entire assembly. Clamped it down. I've leveled the vise using, in this case I'm using 4x4s, but I leveled adjusted the vise until I had a plumb level as it sits on top of each of the rests. So I raise it up, as soon as it clicks in, drop the pressure, so it's sitting on the rest. Checked it several times, and it dials in very, very well. So at this point, everything is going to be a mirror image of the other. If I'm off a half a degree or what have you, I'll adjust accordingly, but the shape of the body will be symmetrical. At this point, I used a piece of 3/16 shim. It still had the rubbers in the jambs. And I took a reference off of how far out the door frame hit the rubber, and so I accommodated with a piece of 1/8 inch, 125. And so if there's any adjustment hither or dither, that'll come out of the rubber. Because there's so much interruption in the roof line. Well, maybe I can get up here. See, it's pushed out and in. Finding that reference was difficult. If I need to tweak anything at all for symmetry, as long as I can maintain symmetry, I'll push. This does look like it's a little in, as the top post appears. For the most part, it's really hard to tell. Yeah, it's really hard to tell whether it's supposed to be in or out, because you do have the thickness of the door standing out from that frame, and then accommodated by the overhang. At this point, I'm probably pretty close, but this body line lines up with this, and this overstates it. The rain gutter goes in right along here. Hammered a few more dents out just to make sure I can arrive at a shape. I think I might have covered this, but the windshield, or rather the rear window, I've just got a couple of dings. I'm gauging based on this tear when this comes full, and then I'll block it out, or I'll brace it out and then start hammer and doweling on it. But for the most part, that's coming to a shape where it's not inducing stress or twist anywhere in the body. Anyway, we begin on this